Diversity. It's a word we hear a lot these days, both in education and in the private sector. Diversity was one of the topics of your chapter this week, and some of the things that fall under diversity, which you were asked to kind of consider, was culture, which is a shared value system, belief system that lead to norms and behaviors. A second thing was co-culture, which is subordinate to culture. Oftentimes the co-culture has a variation on its values. And so a co-culture might be, it could be religious, like Muslim culture, which the Muslim culture and Judeo-Christian culture differ in some of their ideas of marriage, family, those types of things, but they all belong to our larger culture. And you were also directed to look at various demographics, age, race, or really ethnicity, income level, gender. And gender right now is under construction. We used to say male, female, but gender is broadening to non-binary. And there's a lot of pushback against that in our current culture war. So anyway, those are some of the things that you were asked to consider for your discussion board. Now, what I'd like to do is, and I don't want to get into a big, long lecture about what you read in the book. And for our purposes right now, what we're going to be dealing with is how you can apply these things. Certainly, culture is something that we need to know about. And basically, we need to be understanding of other people's feelings about various religious and political and social issues. That's our responsibility because we're going to drive success at work. So I'd like to talk to you about some of the comments that stood out to me on the discussion board. And just so you can see, I did chicken scratch the comments for all three classes. And of course, the one that came up the most was cultural literacy. And so, but that can mean a lot of things. So let's talk about some of the comments that really stuck out to me. And the reason they stuck out is because the individuals that submitted these comments were looking at ways to apply the ideas that we read. So here's one from Matthew Palma. Before creating a diversity training for my organization, I would first want to know my audience, then think of who they will be interacting with. Okay, so maybe instead of teaching, if you were going to put a training program together, just going through a lecture about culture and different types of culture, maybe we should first target our audience. Most of us have an audience, either customers, their clients, their patients, their citizens, but most of us have customers of a kind that we need to target. Now, I had a dean one time that was tasked to provide a plenary speech at a dinner for American Honors. And all the American Honors students were sprinkled about the dinner tables. And my dean's speech basically focused on the plight of African American income and how it related to success rates at universities and colleges. But as I surveyed the room, the majority of the audience were Hispanic women. Mexican women. And so my dean's speech was off target. It was a good speech, but he had failed to analyze his audience. And so we need to always analyze our audience. And an audience is not something that's just sitting in a theater or an auditorium facing a speaker. An audience is a group of people that might buy things. It's a group of potential employees. An audience is many things. And so, like Nike has a particular audience. Let's see. The American or the Affordable Health Care Act has a certain audience. Let's see. EV cars or Elon Musk has a certain audience. And all those audiences are different. And so we need to tailor our communication to the specific targeted audience that we're going to be talking to. Now here's another one from Dylan. The most useful form of diversity training, I think, could be offered to myself and my coworkers as a lesson on avoiding stereotyping of customers. So let's take a look at this, because at work, we're usually in some kind of department or division. And I don't really care for those words as it relates to corporate culture. But if you notice, I've listed some of the main ones up here. There's an HR department. There's a sales department, a finance department. There's a customer service department and an operations or warehouse department. And most of the time, when you communicate for your own needs, you communicate in what the book calls a vertical sense of communication. You go up to your boss and they go to their boss, or you go to their boss together in order to solve, salary problems or personal problems within the workplace, or performance reviews. And that's how we handle upward communication. But more and more companies are expecting you to work in groups and work on teams and projects within the organization, which we call horizontal communication, which means HR, sales, customer service, and operations. They all need to, at some point, get together and work together. And most of these departments have competing motivations. And so we need to get those motivations aligned, because really the thing that matters, and I'm glad Dylan pointed this out, really the thing that matters is our customers. And sometimes within the organization, we forget that. And so anyway, excuse me for the pause. Anyway, I've noticed more recent times where servers don't really like their customers. And there's a tip debate going on in America. So sometimes a server might have a presupposed bias about a customer, and then that comes across in the interaction, and the tip isn't as big. Most people don't know that servers only make $2.13 an hour. But I think it's important that, and it's a responsibility we have for all of us to serve our customers and our clients well. Another comment was, and this comes, excuse me if I'm getting the name wrong, and send me an email if I am, Farouk. Studies show that boards that are composed of different culture perform 35% better than boards that are composed of only one culture. Now that's interesting. So it is important to realize that organizations are cultures too. The culture of an organization can affect you in many ways, specifically in a physical or emotional environment. Your fit within an organization's culture makes all the difference between a satisfying experience and a disappointing job. And we see companies today moving away from the old military culture where everything was top down and trying to get people to work together. Some are taking down the cubicles in the workplace. Here you see, kind of typical relaxed culture. You have a person sitting up here. I don't know if they're another speaker or if they are an audience member that didn't fit into the chair. But this is a more relaxed culture. And I love this type of culture where there are no walls or separations between the cultures. And some of the companies that you can think of, like say Southwest Airlines, which I know is having trouble today, but if you go back 25 years ago, you'd walk on and their flight attendants were in shorts and polo shirts. Well, all the other flight attendants were in suits. And so there was this casual idea of Southwest Airlines, and they became one of the busiest airlines. Big tech companies now, and they're pulling back as well, but they have lunch rooms, pizza rooms where you can get for free. They have safe space rooms and cookies with corporate executive meetings and that type of thing, where the culture is more like what they call a campus. And now during COVID, the big tech companies realized that maybe they were spending too much on their cultural aspect and it wasn't paying dividends. So now you're seeing tremendous amounts of layoffs within big tech companies like, well, we've already seen it with Twitter, Microsoft, Disney is coming next. Big tech layoffs are happening. And you may see a shift in a little bit more authoritarian style culture. I love this one. This is from Karaili. Now, Karaili, if I got that wrong, please send me an email. While watching the TED Talk video presented by Pellegrino Riccardi, I found that he presented some vital information on how to start the process of learning about the work and customs around him. He mentioned that curiosity was one of the best ways to learn about the world around you, and that asking simple, easy questions was the best way to start communicating with those around you. One time I was saying, at a rehearsal, I was saying, we need to get together on Saturday for a short while and discuss some of the designs. And so the people that were going to be attending the meeting were saying, yeah, sure, what time? And we set a time. And I said, why don't we brown bag it and do a lunch? And one of the designers was an African student from Nigeria. And she looked around and she was confused and she goes, what's a brown bag it? And it's like, no, brown bag. Everybody bring a brown bag. And she still looked confused and somebody looked at her and said, a sack lunch. And everybody's like nodding their heads and she was still confused. And we go, what's up? And she goes, what's a sack? And so we attend, you read a little part about ethnocentrism in the book. And ethnocentrism is really hard to get away from, but we speak in colloquialisms that sometimes people from other cultures or even people from other demographics, they don't understand the actual words or phrases that you're saying. Here you can see, if somebody comes up and they tell me, and I'm a little out of date here, folks, but if somebody comes up and tells me, I really love Drake, I can begin to put them in an age bracket. If somebody comes up and says, Mr. Patterson, my family has big parties on Cinco de Mayo, I begin to put a qualifier on their ethnicity. And when I get an essay and somebody doesn't double space after a period, I can begin to place them in a context as a student from another country. And it didn't show up in their vocal skills, but it shows up in their writing skills. So all down here, you have things that maybe are below the water level, but they're always working as part of who they are. So that's me, folks, and that's my talk on this week's discussion. I don't know how good this was. I made it especially for you, as you can see. So this is Mr. Patterson. I am checking out, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.